Not only did it feel like an infestation, it felt like something bad was going to happen.
We couldn't just move because who was going to buy the place?
We just couldn't feel peace there. I felt like our family was falling apart.
It was so disgusting that it was inside my bed while I was asleep.
These things were just popping up everywhere.
What are you willing to do to win this war?
3 different families fighting 3 different infestations. Home is a sanctuary, but invaders don't respect boundaries. Our 4 walls provide all they need to survive, to thrive, and to multiply. And when they move in, home will never feel the same again. At an Oregon hospital, Tammy Adams's dream of living close to nature has backfired. She's receiving emergency treatment because her home is infested with a dangerous pest. And now her family fear for her life.
It got to the point where I was literally thinking, if she dies, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do.
6 months earlier, when Tammy and her partner Kevin first visit the house, the only thing they notice is its beauty. Finding a place as secluded as this is a stroke of luck.
When we went to look at the place, it almost was too good to be true. It was gorgeous. Somebody had planted big fir trees and birch trees, and it was just so shady. It was just a really, really nice place.
We honestly planned on living there for 5-10 years minimum. It was that cool.
It looked like it'd been empty for quite a while. There was leaves inside the house. The scent in there seemed kind of stale air. It needed a good cleaning.
And the one thing Tammy and I both noticed was, God, there's a lot of dead bugs in these windows. That wasn't really a surprise to me because it is out in the country and bugs are just a fact of life.
The couple sign up for a year's rental agreement and move in with Jared, Tammy's 16-year-old son. As they settle in, everyone begins to notice a few things about life in the country.
We noticed a lot more insects. All the beetles were starting to come out. Things were coming out from under the rocks, coming out from, under the deck and stuff. There were certain areas that kept getting webs in them, and they seemed to pop up so quickly. The ones in the windowsills were kind of weird just because they were a funnel-type web. I'd be vacuuming them out, and next morning there'd be 2 or 3 more webs.
With so many webs around, a few roaming spiders are inevitable.
Central Oregon, you got tons of spiders, so you don't pay a whole lot of attention to it.
Unlike Kevin, Jared is curious about the spiders.
I'd see them crawling, and I'd take a glass and set it on top so I could see what it is.
Sometimes he'd put them in a jar to show me how big of a spider he caught by the time I got home from work, which was a little disgusting.
It's kind of interesting to look at in a weird way.
Bugs aside, things are going well in the house.
Kevin and I had decided we were going to get married. We didn't want anything big, just going to have some friends and have a nice barbecue.
I was feeling pretty excited for a guy in his early 40s who'd never been married before. I thought, this is going to be great. It's going to be awesome.
But as wedding plans get underway, the spiders are impossible to ignore.
It kind of became an everyday thing, going around and looking in the windows. Every day I'm killing spiders.
And Tammy notices something alarming about the spiders' behavior.
They were so fast and aggressive. It was getting scary.
Okay, we've got spiders who think they're, tough guys. They're only spiders. What are they going to do? In hindsight, it should have been a red flag.
In rural Idaho, a young family have found their dream home. Surrounded by fields and lakes, this remote house is a welcome breath of fresh air for Ben Sessions, wife Amber, and their 2 young boys.
We'd been living in this apartment, and it was just really tight-fitting, hot, loud, noisy. We were ready to be back out in the country. When we found this house, it just was perfect. I was so excited. It just seemed like a really good spot for our kids.
I knew my wife loved that house. It was what she wanted, and I wanted to get her what she wanted and help her be happy.
Amber is pregnant with her 3rd child, so the spacious house and yard is perfect.
We thought, oh, this will be a good investment. We can sell it for more, because it was supposedly a bank repo, and so we thought we were getting a good deal.
The lot has stood empty for over a year. But in a time of foreclosures, that's nothing out of the ordinary. The Sessions love their new home, even if there is a lot of fixing up to do. So when Ben realizes the water smells strange, he blames old pipes. The overgrown yard also needs attention, but Ben's enthusiastic about that task.
I fell in love with the yard. Just perfect, out in the country, beautiful and open.
But even the middle of nowhere is teeming with life.
I was cleaning up the chicken coop area. It really grossed me out, and I jumped back. It really put a pit in my stomach, thinking, oh man, I hope there's not more of these.
Ben recognizes them as garter snakes, the most common non-venomous snake in the U.S.
I remember him saying, Amber, come here. He had caught 2 snakes in a bucket. I thought, well, we live out in the country, we're gonna see a few snakes.
Amber didn't think it was a problem, but a few days later, Ben finds more snakes. Now he's collecting dozens of them. Suddenly, being outside isn't so much fun.
Just the feeling of them, the way their skin moves over their ribs. A lot of them would try to reach up and bite me. I remember smelling them, and oh, it was just terrible. I just wondered what the heck they had done, if it had used the bathroom on me or what.
Meanwhile, Amber is calling the power company to register as the new owners. And they've got an unusual record for the house.
The man that I talked to said, oh, I have a note here saying that they couldn't get to the power meter because of snakes.
As more snakes cross through their yard, it's clear they must be coming from and heading to somewhere. Amber goes online to research their habits. She discovers that their new house is situated in perfect garter snake country.
An area of natural habitat with some lakes or streams, some meadows with some long grass, will allow a very opportunistic animal like a garter snake to be very, very successful and use all of those different habitats.
I was thinking, well, they must be coming from the lake behind our house.
I think I was trying to cling on to that hope that maybe we were just stirring them up. That this problem will go away, but it just kept getting worse and worse.
Inside, Ben notices that the smell in the water supply is also getting worse. And the taste isn't much better.
It was like really gross onions. It's the best way I could describe it. It was really oniony.
My husband actually called our realtor, and he said that he had put some Clorox in the water to cleanse it out. So we just kind of went with it, thought, oh, well, I guess that makes sense.
But a few days later, events outside overtake any concerns about the plumbing. On their son Andrew's 5th birthday, the weather is perfect for a party outside. But venturing outdoors is not an option, now that the grass is alive with snakes. That day, Ben captures 42 of them.
Catching that many in one day is not normal. It just kept escalating.
After that, we just kept finding more and more.
The Sessions are about to discover there's more to the snake's invasion than meets the eye. In Oregon, there's nothing unusual about seeing a few spiders around. But the sheer number and behavior of 8-legged visitors in this home is far from ordinary.
Every day I'm killing spiders. They were so fast and aggressive, it was getting scary.
Tammy Adams, son Jared, and fiancé Kevin are starting to get concerned. And as more and more spiders cross their path, they are right to be worried.
Oftentimes, spiders will bite when they feel threatened. And that happens a lot when people will pick up, say, an item that's been laying on a floor, put their hand into a box or a wood pile, or if that spider crawls into bed and they roll over on it.
It's not a risk that Kevin is prepared to take.
These things were just popping up everywhere. I thought, you know, I'm gonna take the bull by the horns here. We're gonna take care of this.
Kevin sets off a bug bomb to spray pesticides throughout the house. While it takes effect, the family go to the movies.
We're hoping when we get home that all those damn spiders are gonna be dead.
I couldn't believe the amount of dead bugs that were all over the place. I assumed that we had gotten everything and that all of the spiders were dead as well.
It seemed to have worked like a charm. I was husband guy. I had done the job.
It was 3 or 4 days and we started noticing some spiders again. Didn't really notice any other bugs, and I was glad about that, but the spiders were back, and I thought that's kind of strange.
The spider numbers got increased by ×4. All of a sudden they're everywhere.
Everyone notices something curious about the spiders returning to the house.
What we began to notice is we're seeing less variety of spiders and more of one particular type of spider.
And these dominant spiders aren't the friendly type.
I woke up and I had this burning, stinging sensation in my elbow. I didn't know what was going on. I was kind of confused.
It was red and really angry looking with a dark dot in the center of it. I mean, it hurt looking at it.
Over the next few days, Jared's elbow gets worse.
It just got so swollen, I was squeezing all this pus and everything out of it. It was green and it was terrible looking. It was probably the grossest thing I've ever seen just coming out of my body.
Tammy takes Jared to a hospital to be checked out. It's bad news. This is a spider bite.
The doctor said the type of bite this is could be very dangerous because of it getting infected so quickly.
Jared's put on a course of strong antibiotics, and the bite slowly improves. But with hundreds of spiders now making themselves at home, Tammy and Kevin are getting worried. They call an exterminator, who heads straight for the crawl space under the house. His assessment is a shock.
He said that it was the largest infestation he'd seen in the 13 years he was working. He said that they were hobo spiders. These are not good spiders to have in your house.
There's a reason hobo spiders have a nasty reputation.
A hobo spider bite can lead to secondary infections from maybe bacteria that they're carrying on themselves or that we pick up from somewhere else. Well, hobo spider bites can be pretty nasty.
The only way to kill these spiders is to spray each one individually with pesticide, a near impossible task that even the exterminator isn't convinced will work.
He just warned us that it was not going to get rid of those spiders. It might lower the amount that we see, but it wasn't going to get rid of them.
But the exterminator does give Tammy a useful tip. The yard's most attractive feature, its trees, provide hobos with a perfect breeding ground. He advises her to cut them down.
I did contact the landlord and let him know, and he wasn't willing to alter anything at the house. I just think that he thought that I was some hysterical woman being scared of spiders or something.
But Tammy's Oregon home is on the front line of an invasion of hobo spiders that's spreading throughout the Northwest. Hobo spiders earned their name after hitchhiking in the 1930s to Seattle in cargo ships from Europe. They moved across the Northwest by railroad and now reach as far as Colorado. Their numbers are increasing.
Oregon is finding higher numbers of hobo spiders. They like moist, humid conditions. It's a perfect environment for them.
But it's not just the land around their house that's contributing to the increasing numbers of spiders. Kevin's well-intentioned bug bomb has made the situation inside their home worse.
One of the things that will lead to large numbers of hobo spiders inside of a home is actually reducing other insects that compete for food. So indiscriminate spraying of pesticides will then cause a huge increase in hobo spiders.
Basically, I just gave them free reign of the house, handed them the keys. Here you go, guys.
It felt like that this wasn't the end of it. Something bad was going to happen.
Many of us fantasize about swapping life in the city for the country. And for Tom Juneau, wife Janet, and adopted daughter Nia, a move from the city to a home among trees more than lives up to expectations.
It's lovely. It's a very nice environment. Shady. You don't have to worry about the sun bearing down on your house all the time. It's kind of idyllic.
It's a step away from your daily working life, and it's a place where you really can relax.
The Juneaus have always made the most of their surroundings by spending time outdoors. And they've always been prepared to share it.
You live in the South, I mean, there's always going to be some insects, but you get used to that.
Daughter Nia isn't as generous when it comes to her swings.
She was frightened by the ants, but it was no big deal because they were so small. They were not biting ants. They were not red ants. They were little brown ants. They couldn't have been more standard issue.
But before long, the sheer numbers make them hard to ignore.
I grilled outside a lot. I had gone back inside to get the meat. I heard, "Daddy, Daddy." Of course, I went running outside thinking the worst, that she had burned herself or that there was a fire. I was like, "Honey, honey, what's going on?" And she was like, "Daddy, Daddy, ants, ants." And she pointed toward the grill. And I looked at it, and it was this grotesque spectacle. Ants covered the grill.
The Juneaus figure the incident is a one-time thing and don't give it another thought. It's easy enough to forget about creatures as tiny as ants.
One time we left a donut in our car.
And the moment their backs are turned, the ants mobilize into highly organized task forces to seek out food.
The workers will forage out from the central nest looking for food. And when they find food, they have to tell the other ants where it is. So it lays a pheromone trail, what's called a recruitment trail. And through time, the number of ants goes higher and higher.
That to me was the first inkling that they were capable of really putting up some numbers. But because they were still outside, it was something that you could sort of rationalize.
But the Junos' home is not as sacred or as secure as they'd like to believe.
Suddenly, they were all over the kitchen.
I would get the gloves on, get out the spray bottle, and wipe up and clean up just to kind of stop the stream of ants.
They become an incredibly capable force when they start invading your house. We had to keep our food zip-locked all the time.
Instead of calling an exterminator, the Junos decide to battle on alone.
I was sort of fatalistic about pest control. I mean, the last thing that I wanted in this house was for this house to be loaded with poisons and pesticides. I mean, we were really, against that.
Meanwhile, the ants begin to get into everything, turning up in the most surprising places.
And the wine glass was populated with ants. That made me realize that we were in a battle.
A battle that quickly escalates to a full-scale takeover of the kitchen. And as the numbers swell into the millions, the Juno family begins to realize they're dealing with an unusual kind of enemy. These invaders are no ordinary ants.
I didn't know the ants were capable of numbers like that. You do feel like you are under siege. So what are you willing to do to win this war?
At Tammy Adams's Oregon home, danger has come indoors. With her son Jared and fiancé Kevin, she's trapped in a house that's been hijacked by spiders. And they're living up to their aggressive reputation.
If a person has hundreds of hobo spiders, you do want to be careful. I mean, this is an arachnid that can bite, especially if it feels threatened. And so if you have large numbers in a house, there's large potential for you to get in a situation where you could be threatening that spider, whether you're picking something up or you roll over in bed.
It's just a month until Tammy and Kevin get married, but all they can think about are spiders.
I'd never lived somewhere where I had to check my bed for bugs before I got into it, shaking my shoes out like I live in scorpion country. Lift the toilet, look, okay. You had to literally look everywhere because you never knew where they were gonna pop up.
Tammy and Kevin are locked into a year's rental contract. The exterminator can't offer a practical solution, and the hobo spiders find their shady home irresistible.
Hobo spiders love to be in dark, moist areas. So when you have a lot of leaf litter, say underneath a deck, or you have a crawl space that has a lot of debris in it, it's definitely a great place for hobo spiders to breed. Females will tend to leave their eggs underneath rocks, leaf litter, things of that nature, but they will go into crawl spaces, especially if there's a lot of debris in there, to leave their egg cases. So it is a perfect habitat, having a lot of that around a home.
They just wouldn't quit coming in. We all began to get very paranoid.
And the sense of paranoia is justified.
I woke up one morning, just something didn't feel right. and there was a spider in there, and I was jumping around. It was so disgusting that it was inside my bed while I was asleep. Got in the shower, and I looked down, and there's a red spot with the dot in the middle.
This isn't the first time Tammy has seen this mark. When son Jared was bitten by a hobo spider, it looked exactly the same, except Tammy's is about to get a whole lot worse.
By the following day, the redness had grown about as big around as a golf ball. I almost could feel it eating through the tissue.
Kevin and Jared rushed Tammy to the hospital. Her condition shocks Dr. Glinda Crabtree, who treats her that day.
I would say this is one of the worst spider bites that I've seen. It looked like a big, red, hot abscess, probably about the size of a mango. And the amount of pus that came out was about a cup.
An infection as bad as Tammy's can be extremely dangerous.
Tammy's situation was an emergency. She could have gotten very sick from this abscess if it were allowed to progress.
Tammy's at risk of developing a threatening condition called sepsis.
Sepsis is when there's an introduction of bacteria into the blood system itself. Consequences of sepsis can result in high morbidity and high mortality. People can be very, very sick. They can get admitted to the intensive care unit. It could be a long recovery. The worst case scenario would be death.
It was horrific. I mean, it got to the point where I was literally thinking, if they can't figure this out and she dies, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do.
It takes over a month for Tammy to recover. The infestation is dominating every aspect of their lives.
I still got married, and I still, am with Kevin, and we still love each other, but it ruined that part of my life. I mean, it was a really horrendous thing to go through.
The house was perfect, but the spiders too much to bear. They pulled together enough money to pack up and abandon their home to the menacing squatters, moving somewhere that won't attract them.
No deck, no trees. I just didn't want to have any part of that same type of terrain around the house at all.
The spiders have won. They sue their former landlord and recover some of the $10,000 spent on medical bills while living at the property. But the psychological trauma continues.
There was a lot of fear that I have not gotten rid of. That's going to be there forever. Something tickling your arm, it's got to be a spider.
You can't live in a house and look over your shoulder. It's the one place where you shouldn't have to be looking over your shoulder.
When Ben and Amber Sessions moved to the country, they wanted their boys to learn the value of nature. But this wasn't what they had in mind. Their yard is infested with garter snakes.
Catching that many in one day is not normal. It just kept escalating.
In a single day, Ben catches over 40. After catching bucket loads of snakes, Ben's hands are covered in a now familiar stench. The taste they blamed on old plumbing has a more menacing cause.
The water tasted just like they smelled on my hands, and oh, my heart just sunk.
A quick search online reveals how garter snakes produce this distinctive odor.
If a garter snake is scared, it'll emit this musk. The idea is if I can get some of this musk smeared all over the face of my predator, maybe get some in its mouth, it'll spit me out. And it smells pretty bad.
Ben and Amber are certain that their water supply has been tainted with the same odor.
Been showering in this. It was terrible. I mean, everything you do in your home is with water.
But as Amber discovers, a bad smell is the least of their worries. When the snakes emit their musk, they also defecate. And snake feces contains salmonella and tapeworm eggs, potentially harmful to children and expectant mothers, like Amber.
It makes you sick. What did we get ourselves into? What are we exposing our children to?
Andrew!
As more snakes arrive in the yard, Amber keeps the kids indoors, though it's clear the invasion has already had an impact.
I feel like our family was falling apart.
But just as the family reached their limit, something strange happens. The snakes disappear from the yard. And the Sessions finally get some rest. But the relief is short-lived.
I laid down hoping to get some sleep. It just was far from that. It was like a chalkboard when someone scrapes their nails. It's just a gross feeling inside that noise gave you.
You could just hear them slither. They would have to have been in the walls, like inside our house.
Ben gets up early, determined to assess the extent of the infestation.
I got my drill out and just removed some of the siding. I put my gloves on thinking this could be a mess. And when I pulled that siding part off, dozens fell from there. And they immediately were slithering back under the foundation.
We just knew that, okay, this is a huge problem.
And sure enough, Amber encounters a snake inside the house.
It was a Sunday morning. I went to go into the laundry room. There was a snake, like almost 2 feet long on the floor. For me, for a long time, I was like, well, if they're not in the house, I can handle it. But as soon as they were in the house, I knew that there was going to be a lot bigger problem.
Fearing the snakes could be congregating somewhere inside, Ben inspects the crawl space under the house.
I didn't want to do it, but the only reason I did it was to see what I could find. I had to military crawl across the dirt. The feeling of being under there, I was scared to death inside.
As Ben goes further in, the stench of snake gets stronger.
Where I was in the crawl space, you could smell it big time. They were crisscrossing everywhere. There's enough snake holes under the house that they had to be under the ground. It was obvious that we were living right on top of them.
Below the crawl space, within the foundation of the house, lies a massive snake den, a hibernacular. And the Sessions have paid good money to live on top of it.
We knew then that this seriously was a problem. This was their den. This is where they hibernated. How in the world did we end up in a house infested with snakes?
The news is bad, but Amber is about to uncover another dark secret about her snake house. Some critters seem so insignificant, they can blindside their victims. A vast army of ants is invading a dream Georgia home, taking the Juneau family by surprise.
With constant war with these little, tiny little creatures that were infiltrating virtually every corner of our house.
Tom and Janet call an exterminator. The battle lines are drawn with pesticides around the perimeter of the house. Inside, poisoned bait is injected in strategic locations. The idea is that the ants will take the bait back to their queen, causing the colony to collapse.
One of the primary means of controlling ants is with bait, a toxic bait, where you give the ants something to eat, has a toxicant in it, and they share that toxicant with their nest mates, and you get a slow decline of the colony.
The Junos believe that they will now win this war. But the ceasefire is temporary.
I thought that the ants were more formidable than the pest control people. I knew that they were a sort of a superhuman force.
Tom's hunch is right. The exterminator treated for regular ants. But these are a new kind of invader. One that can't be killed by usual means. These are Argentine ants. Accidentally shipped into the US over 100 years ago, Argentine ants have proved a force to be reckoned with.
The thing that makes the Argentine ant different from other ants are, first and foremost, their numbers. The numbers are just tremendous. The colonies can be in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions.
There's another reason they're so successful. Unlike other ant species, Argentine ants have more than one queen in a colony, so it's almost impossible to cripple it using spray and bait.
And if you think of the reproductive potential of a colony like that, multiple queens producing multiple eggs, they're adding thousands of ants per day. Their numbers build up very quickly.
And they maintain this vast army by living in harmony.
Most ant species are very aggressive towards one another. Often they'll fight to the death. Argentine ants are not that way. They spend all of their time building up their populations. And that's one of the reasons they're so successful.
As a result, a vast network of super colonies now stretches from California to Georgia. And the Juno's house sits in the path of this unstoppable force.
We were in competition with a creature rather than creatures. It becomes rather terrifying.
Wave after wave of ant platoons raid the house, seeking two resources vital for the survival of the colony: food and water.
And they started getting into the second floor of the house with extreme speed. They were clearly in vigorous competition with us for the house.
On this battleground, the terrain favors the ants. To their horror, the Junos realize the very fabric of their home makes them an easy target. The house is made from wood, which has a high moisture content that not only attracts the ants, but also allows them easy entry.
The house was becoming permeable. We lived in the house as an effort to be one with nature. Well, now we were becoming one with nature, and it was really horrifying.
And during a hot, dry Georgian summer, the competition for resources within the Juno's home makes for a brutal war.
These ants are interested in water. They're sort of forever thirsty. They're not just interested in your food. They're interested in really sort of basic properties of your household. The things that make your house a house are the things that make the house interesting to them.
During periods of drought, the ants begin looking for water. So Argentine ants will move in it. Literally within a couple hours, you can have thousands of Argentine ants at that water source.
I took a swig of water. It was like, oh my God, ants. There were a lot of ants in the water bottle, and there were a lot of ants in my mouth. I mean, I had to spit out 20 or 30 ants. A final frontier had been breached.
But this isn't their final raid on the Junos' home. Individually, they're insignificant. En masse, they're unstoppable. Argentine ants are a foreign army that's marching across the USA.
So roughly, the Argentine ant distribution in the U.S. is most of the southeastern states, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, South Carolina, North Carolina, probably parts of Kentucky, parts of Texas. And then in California, it's pretty much the only ant that pest control operators deal with. Has pretty much driven most of the native ant species to extinction, so it's a tremendous problem.
In Georgia, the Junos' home is under siege. And it's just gotten personal.
I heard her screaming, and I looked in, and the ants were on her body, and they were actually in her hair. We lived in the ant house. I mean, that's what my daughter called the house.
The family longs to escape, but it's a far from practical option.
We couldn't just move because who was going to buy the place? I mean, what were we going to do? And it was a beautiful house originally that we were going to have to sell at, you know, a steep discount, essentially give away for nothing. And what was happening was simply that the ants were winning.
Extermination treatments have failed. There is one drastic option, but that will cost tens of thousands of dollars. The ants gain easy entry through their wooden walls. If they're reinforced with concrete, their house will look the same, but inside, it will be a fortress.
Ultimately, we were willing to spend all our money, which is the option that we took. We had to gut the house. There was no other choice.
Time had come. Reclaim your home. Nature's great, but when it steps inside and steps on your life, then it was a different story.
The renovations make a big difference.
It was one of those things where you go, why didn't we do this before?
It was an amazing moment. It was really, really great.
But there are no guarantees that the Junos strategy will work. Across the U.S., Argentine ant infestations are proving difficult to eliminate permanently, outwitting even the experts.
It's very difficult, if not impossible, to eradicate an Argentine ant infestation, and I'd always put my money on the Argentine ant.
The odds aren't good, so the Junos can only wait and see if their woodland retreat remains ant-free. Tom Juno doesn't underestimate the enemy.
One ant is extremely stupid. 2 ants is a little bit smarter, but when you have a couple million, all that intelligence is sort of amassed toward the intelligence of the colony, and they become quite a force to be reckoned with.
There really isn't a barrier that you can make. These ants are living outside, and they send out scouts, and some of those scouts come in your kitchen if they find a food resource. They don't care it's your kitchen. They'll move into your kitchen by the tens of thousands looking for or gathering that food. So there really isn't a way that you can keep them out. You can discourage these ants from establishing nest sites around the structure, but there's really no way to keep them out.
In Idaho, the Sessions family is discovering that their escape to the country was a big mistake.
If you're living in a countryside environment, you're going to encounter some wildlife, and you may encounter a garter snake or two. And if I had a property where I was seeing all of a sudden 40, 50, 60 snakes on my lawn, I'd wonder what was going on.
Ben Sessions has found evidence of a den of thousands of garter snakes under his house. Upstairs, wife Amber is blissfully unaware of her husband's discovery, but she's about to make one of her own. While searching online, she comes across a story on a local news site.
a wiggly, squirmy mass of snake, which is just one of hundreds of reasons the Ards are packing up house and leaving the home they bought in January.
It was only a baby snake, but it was a snake, and I was like, oh.
The story is about another Idaho family whose house was also infested with garter snakes. They live in the same town as the Sessions. But there's something else that's familiar. It's the house that Amber lives in now, with her family.
Oh my word, that is our house. I showed my husband and we were both just kind of sick. We knew then that this seriously was a problem.
Amber learns that the snakes have been living under her house for years. The previous family abandoned the place and never knew who bought it after them, so the Sessions weren't made aware of the problem.
I just couldn't believe we were looking right at our home and we never saw it before we purchased.
But to the snakes, this house is their territory.
A foundation offers a lot of possibilities for little nooks and crannies for snakes to get into and successfully hibernate for the winter. Once a den site is established and the animals are using it year after year, there's very little that's going to change that.
The Sessions learn that the only solution is to lift the entire house up and pour in new foundations. The work will cost twice the value of the property.
And that would have been well over $100,000 to even do that. And we are already well into that just buying the house.
Days later, Amber leaves for the hospital to give birth to their baby daughter, Miley. They never return to the house.
I didn't want to take my new daughter to a snake house.
The Sessions see only one way out. They declare bankruptcy.
It's hard to not get upset and angry about it. I just hope nobody else has to go through that and live there.
The House of Snakes is back on the market.
As a human species, we like sometimes to get out of a city environment. What we need to realize is that we're actually moving into natural areas that are already populated by all sorts of different species of wildlife. It's quite likely that those wildlife species will investigate our homes.
Living close to nature means you'll need to expect the worst, as well as the best, of what it has to offer.
My wife started to yell out for me. Whatever it was flew across the room.
They were coming out of the woodwork. They were coming out of the kitchen. It was disgusting.
It's like a feeding time.
It just seemed like we're gonna have to pack up and move.
I remember my husband saying, "Do not tell a soul."
I had it. I really had.
3 different families fighting 3 different infestations. Home is a sanctuary, but invaders don't respect boundaries. Our 4 walls provide all they need to survive, to thrive, and to multiply. And when they move in, home will never feel the same again.
From the beginning of time, pests have been exploiting our behaviors, and we continue to see it today. And we can see significant issues with pests in city environments. A city to certain pests can be a paradise. There's lots of food, there's lots of garbage, there's lots of places to hide. There's lots of unique environments that they can take advantage of.
On Vancouver Island, Canada, single mom Tamara Hounsome is taking advantage of a cheap rental home big enough for her 3 growing boys.
It was great to be moving in. The boys and I entered the house and picked out our rooms, and the boys wanted my room because it was the biggest, but I said no. We had planned on staying here for quite some time.
But not everyone is convinced that this is a dream home. Tamara's 13-year-old son, Brighton, feels uneasy from the moment he steps inside.
It was pretty creepy, like it was an old house.
At night, the house comes alive.
I'd be playing a computer game. I'd hear something downstairs, like creaks and scratches. It sounded like footsteps. I really thought it was a ghost.
They told me that they believed the house was haunted. I wasn't hearing the noises they were hearing, so I thought, you know, yeah, you're crazy, right?
Tamara stays up to reassure her boys.
I sat up with them one night, and we waited for the noises to start. And they did. And at that point, I couldn't reassure them of anything, because I didn't know what I was hearing. You could hear and feel the vibrations from the scratching that was going on. It was so horrifying. We could feel things under our feet, but we didn't know what they were.
Each night, the mysterious noises intensify.
You really believe that, you know, you're losing your mind. You can't figure out the source.
As the boys head off to school one day, Tamara's home alone in the kitchen.
Toby the cat was peering under the dishwasher. And he wouldn't leave.
Most people think that pests plague cities, not the suburbs. Suburbia offers a cleaner, friendlier way of life. But even the most manicured neighborhoods hide dark secrets.
Dad.
For the Rose family in Matawan, New Jersey, buying a house in the suburbs was an inevitable step along their life plan.
This house represented the American dream. Get married, have children, buy a beautiful house.
It's a friendly neighborhood, a lot of kids. It's clean, it's green. You know, it's just a nice place to wake up to. It just felt like home.
My children were really enjoying the newfound space just by simply running and yelling and being kids.
Their move coincides with the onset of an unusual set of symptoms.
Around the same time, my husband was complaining to me about his inner arms being itchy.
It was sort of like a little swollen, almost like a mosquito bite, but very itchy.
It's not just Frank who's affected.
I recall catching little snapshots of my son scratching. He's scratching and scratching. I was noticing my older son waking up in the morning with a series of red bumps in different spots. The back of his neck, sometimes his cheek, and on his arms. I couldn't make sense of it. The doctor says that it's probably some type of allergic reaction to a detergent or a soap that he's using. So I immediately switched to something hypoallergenic. I thought maybe the pillows are old, so I threw all the pillows away. I bought all new pillows, put them in cases, and at that point, it seemed to die down. I wasn't seeing marks anymore.
Lauren keeps a close eye on the kids and their bedrooms.
I'm cleaning my younger son's room. Looks like he took a pen and was stabbing the bed frame. And I just chalked it up to that and moved on.
But there are more signs that something is wrong.
As I'm throwing the sheets into the washing machine, I noticed 2 rust-colored spots. And when I touched them, they moved. My first thought is, oh my gosh, I hate living around all these trees and bushes because bugs are getting in. I didn't want to just like toss them on the floor, so I put them in the soap dish.
The size of a pencil tip, the tiny brown bugs look harmless to Lauren, but she still shows them to Frank.
My husband identified these immediately. I remember him going, "They're bed bugs." What?
I wasn't alarmed. I figured I'd come home the next day, pull everything apart, we'd vacuum, clean, set off a couple of bombs, and that would cure the problem.
We checked the bed frame, we checked the nightstand on the side of the bed, we're looking at the rug. We don't see anything.
Frank decides there's no reason to cancel a long-planned fishing trip with his friends. But for Lauren, something just doesn't add up.
My stomach is in knots because something isn't right.
She goes back upstairs for a closer inspection.
There are many areas within a home that pests can hide very easily, whether it's below the carpet, under the baseboard, or in a wall void. You think that they're not there, but they're hiding in this environment all along and coming out possibly when you're sleeping at night.
Immediately I saw movement on the bed frame, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. When I really looked at him, I realized that there were bed bugs everywhere. They were on my baby. They were on his blanket, on his bed frame. They were crawling and living there like this was their schedule.
Bedbugs are like a vampire that's living in your bedroom. They're gonna come out at night to suck your blood and then go back to where they were hiding. About 3 o'clock in the morning, they're gonna come out and find the person sleeping in the bed.
Responsive to chemical messages, the bedbugs home in on our breath.
When we exhale, we give off carbon dioxide, and that's one thing that they look for when they're looking for a host. When they approach the person they're going to feed on, they're going to insert their sucking mouth part into the person's arm, neck, or face. People don't typically feel them bite because they actually have something that numbs the area that they're biting.
I put my baby to bed, and now it's like a feeding time. My whole world just came crashing down around me. I get on the phone with my husband. I'm crying, they're everywhere, they're everywhere, they're everywhere. You have to come home.
I said, okay, all right, calm down. You know, I'm on my way home. As I pulled into the driveway, that's when it kind of hit me. I held my head in my hands and sat there in the driveway for 10 minutes thinking about, you know, what my next move was gonna be. I just figured that we were in deep trouble at this point.
On Vancouver Island, Canada, a new rental home is giving Tamara Hounsome and her boys the creeps.
You could hear and feel the vibrations from the scratching that was going on.
One morning, Tamara's alone in the kitchen.
A rat ran right across my toes. Its little nails dug into my foot as it ran across. It was just horrid. I just thought we had to catch it, and that would be the end of the story.
But for Tamara and her sons, this is just the first chilling chapter.
At the point at which you actually see a rat, that rat is most likely a scout for far larger populations that number in the hundreds.
Tamara has only seen one rat, but as the creepy noises continue, she makes the connection. There must be a family of them beneath her house. It's time to sound the alarm. Her landlord is unreachable, so she calls a professional.
I got on the telephone and I called an exterminator, and I asked him to come over and assess the situation.
Tamara tells the exterminator about the ominous noises. He heads straight to the basement.
He said the house is just invaded with rats.
The exterminator says he can bring a swift end to the rats at a price.
He said it was going to cost me $1,500. I immediately started crying, and he said he's never had a client cry before.
You can get those traps.
So he gave us the tips on how to do this ourselves.
Tamara's only option is to battle on alone. Rats thrive alongside humans. Our homes provide warm shelter and plenty of food.
We really offer them an unlimited food supply that allow them to reproduce unchecked. Whether it's in our homes or whether it's in our sewers, their habitat expands as ours does.
Left unchecked, infestations can easily run into thousands. This one in Florida became so large that rodents turned to cannibalism to survive.
There is nothing that they won't eat. Garbage, waste, food in the house. I can't even think of anything that a rat would not eat.
Like us, rats love fast food. And at one popular chain, onlookers were horrified to see rats running the show.
I was determined we were going to get every single last rat in this house. 15 minutes and we heard the trap go off. And that was the beginning. It makes you jump. And then you have to go look and see what you've trapped. You don't know how big it's gonna be. It's very creepy.
Tamara finds 20 dead rats in just a few days.
It was disgusting. It was horrible. I didn't, in fact, let my kids see one of them. I was so horrified by them.
No matter how many she traps, they keep on coming, and she can hear them throughout the house. She wonders about the ones that got away.
I knew there were more. There were way too many sounds, and I knew they weren't gone.
For the ones that die, plenty more take their place.
Rats are considered the most successful mammal species on the planet after humans. They can produce 2,000 descendants just within the first year of their life and 15,000 over their entire lifespan. Provided with enough space and enough food, there really is no numerical limit on the number of rats that you can see in an infestation. In the near future, we're only going to see populations of rats grow. As our urban centers grow, we produce more waste, we provide more habitat, and we reduce the number of predators that exist in the population. It's the perfect breeding environment for rats to survive in.
Under the Hounsome family's home, non-stop breeding generates a colony of rats, and they're running out of space in the basement.
The rats started coming upstairs. You can hear running through the walls, running above your head, running below your feet.
Armed with long, sharp teeth as hard as steel, rats can gnaw through any obstacle, even concrete walls.
We felt like they were closing in, and then things just got worse.
One time we came home and there was food everywhere. There was like cereal and granola bars open and a lot of food on the ground.
One of the other problems that we find with eradicating rat populations is that if the entire population is not removed at the same time, the sheer numbers with which they breed will immediately replace the numbers that are being taken out.
It was disgusting. As a mother, you feel you've really let your children down.
Overflowing from the basement, the rats climb up through the walls, occupy the house, and quickly learn to sidestep Tamara's traps.
Rats have neophobia, which means that they distrust new things that have entered into their environment. All of those items placed in the wrong kind of manner will get a rat's attention and will make a rat avoid that trap.
Over the weeks, the rats become more daring.
It's as if the rats had been set free, and now they're running just throughout the whole house. They were coming out of the woodwork, they were coming out of the kitchen. They would just sit there and you would walk by and they would look at you. It was very intimidating.
With the rats taking over the home, the kids are too scared to sleep alone.
I had my son, Brighton, sleeping in my bed with me.
Even the most inhospitable territories are up for grabs as urban areas grow. Phoenix is one of the fastest growing cities in the US. Thanks to piped water, oases of desirable neighborhoods have sprung up, attracting families like the Barnes. It's easy to forget that this was once a parched landscape, home to desert creatures.
One of the things that attracted us to this particular house was the fact that the community was so manicured.
I think a lot of people kind of lean towards having grass because you have the desert around you and it's a change of scenery, so it's good to have the greenery.
The Barnes settle in and soon make friends in their neighborhood. But they discover they're not the only ones attracted to this man-made desert paradise.
We had one of Talena's friends over. Talena and her friend were just around about in the house playing downstairs. Talena's friend said, "Auntie Tania, there's a bug in here."
Went over to see exactly what it is. I grabbed a hard shoe and I swatted it.
I had never seen a scorpion. Just kind of like a one-time thing, you know, must have gotten in somehow. It wasn't a concern.
As the weeks pass, the scorpion is forgotten.
One evening I was moving my vehicle into the garage. I seen something crawling across the carport. When I did get a little bit closer to it, I did realize it was a scorpion.
Wade puts the two sightings down to coincidence. But their scorpion encounters continue. Over the coming week, they see 1 or 2 a day.
At that point, that's when we kind of thought that, you know, this is unusual.
The Barnes can no longer ignore their unwelcome guests. It's time to take action. But first, they need to find out what scorpion species they're dealing with.
The movement of the scorpion, they're really quick. And they have pinchers, ugly little creatures. Just have to be a little bit quicker than they are. Grab them as quick as you can so you don't get stung yourself.
The Barnes try to identify what they've caught.
There are 40 to 60 different species of scorpions in Arizona. Many of those species look exactly alike.
Tonia searches online and is shocked by what she discovers. the scorpions in her house resemble bark scorpions, the most venomous species in North America. Their sting is powerful enough to kill a small child, like baby Nepal.
I didn't realize just how serious it was for someone who has small kids. At that point, it took it up a notch.
We had the exterminator come out, tell us exactly what we were dealing with.
Immediately when he looked at it, he started shaking his head and he goes, "Yeah, that's a bark scorpion." We were upset. Why us?
After millennia of living harmlessly in the wilderness, scorpions are the new pest on the block in desert cities like Phoenix.
To a bark scorpion, a house is a perfect environment where you have water, you have food, and you have a place to hide. And that's all a bark scorpion needs to survive throughout its life.
Bark scorpions are the most common species found in people's homes. And while most scorpions are solitary, this one doesn't work alone.
Bark scorpions tend to group in clusters, and so you could have tens and sometimes even hundreds of bark scorpions hiding in your wall.
The thought is a very scary feeling, thinking that, you know, they are in the walls multiplying and coming out to look for food.
The exterminator sprays pesticides around the house to kill both the scorpions and the insects they prey on.
There was a certain sense of calm over the house that we took care of the problem and had the house exterminated. And you take a breath and say, you know, the problem taken care of.
We're always hopeful that it would start to get better. But it never did.
On Vancouver Island, Tamara Hounsome is battling an infestation of rats. The rodents have spread through the house from the basement to her bed.
The big rat bolted across my bed and out as fast as it could out of that room. I just about died. I made sure my son was okay. I made sure he didn't get a bite. I didn't wake him up because I didn't want him to know, because he'd be terrified. It's just in total invasion of your entire home. I felt like I was losing control of my house.
Tamara can't take anymore. The rats are now in every corner of her home. And despite repeated attempts to make contact, her landlord has gone AWOL. Desperate and with no money, she contacts her local news station.
I felt like there would be people in the community that might be able to help me in my situation. I don't know what to do.
This public appeal for help is her last hope.
It's like running my life, and I can't afford an exterminator, and my nerves are just shot, so I need to get out of here. So I did the story. After the story aired, I did get a phone call from an exterminating company that offered to come in and do all the work.
It's the same exterminator that Tamara called out before. After watching the news story, he convinces his boss to let him help, for free.
They went through the entire basement, and they blocked off entrances and exit ways, and they put in like triple the amount of traps that I had. That took the weight of the world off my shoulders. I felt like I didn't have to deal with it anymore. I didn't have to see another rat.
The sense of relief is timely as Tamara's son Brighton turns 14. At last, the house feels like a place to have fun in.
I had about 5 friends over, and we played some games. It was a fun birthday party.
I went into the kitchen to check on the cake. The cat came in and was dragging something in front of him.
It's a rat.
The rat came straight at me. Bit me in the toe. Oh, it hurt. Like you've stepped on a nail and it's gone right through your toe. I ran around the kitchen and I chased it and I chased it.
After the rat bite, Tamara rushes to the doctor.
Rats can carry over 40 diseases that are transmissible to humans. The big ones that we see, salmonella, toxoplasmosis, leptospirosis, tularemia, hepatitis, a number of intestinal diseases. In a nutshell, not a clean animal.
She's given the all clear, but it's the final straw for her and the boys.
You're on a roller coaster all the time. You think you're ahead of the game, and then more show up. And it never ends.
It's very, very difficult to completely remove a rat infestation from a house. You might be able to reduce the numbers for a while, but because they can breed so quickly, it's almost inevitable that that population is going to ultimately return within a pretty short period of time.
And even chemical warfare doesn't always work.
Over time, rats will develop an immunity. And the way that this happens is rats that are exposed to poison, most will die, but there will always be some that don't. And those rats that don't die, that aren't susceptible to that poison, will then go on to breed. We are constantly having to develop and generate new toxins, new poisons, because if we don't, we literally will have a breed of rat that can't be killed, a super rat.
In the Hounsome house, the rats have won.
I'm leaving this house to the rats. This house belongs to the rats. I can't do it anymore. I can't chase rats. I can't look for rats. I'm out of here.
We're never going to get rid of rats. The probability that rats will survive us as a species is astronomical.
In New Jersey, Frank and Lauren Rose have discovered bed bugs in their child's bedroom. They're terrified of where they'll find the tiny blood-sucking creatures next.
They were on my baby. They were on his blanket, on his bed frame. I was very afraid.
A lot of people's homes to them are their sanctuaries. It's where people go to be safe, to rest, to spend time with their family. When your home is being invaded by things that you don't want there, whatever that pest may be, it's a very disturbing experience.
My baby's laying there being fed on by 5, 10, 15, 20 bugs. I was racking my brain trying to figure out how I could have gotten this bug.
As the most densely populated city in the U.S., New York's bedbug problem is growing more and more serious.
New York City has a hotline that you can call if they track their bedbug calls. In 2004, they had just over 500 calls, and in 2009, they had just short of 11,000 phone calls. Bedbugs are the pest of the 21st century. The way people travel, the way people ship things. It's very easy for these creatures to hitch a ride. Some cities are even reporting an increase of 500% or more.
In the Rose household, the boys move out of their room. Frank and Lauren begin an all-night battle to root out the bugs.
Now we're in a fight mode. We're in like this battle zone.
Once I started getting into the bed and pulling everything apart, they would start to scatter and go into little crevices and hide.
We're smashing inside the holes and killing them.
It was pretty disgusting. It was pretty disgusting.
This went on from 1 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock in the morning. We weren't even talking. We were just working. So I get everything wrapped up. I've got everything in bags and out of the house.
But it will take more than spearing a few bugs with a knife and throwing out some clothes to kill off this microscopic menace.
One of the worst things you can do is that when you go to throw away furniture, you just start dragging it through the house. What's going to happen is if that piece of furniture has bugs on it, they're going to start falling off of that furniture, and you may end up spreading them throughout the house, which makes them much more difficult to control. All you need to start a bedbug infestation is one adult female that has been fertilized and is ready to lay eggs. And say she lays 3 to 5 eggs, those eggs will hatch, and there is likely to be a male in those eggs that hatched.
As fast as Frank and Lauren can kill them, the bugs are reproducing. Each female can live for more than a year and lay up to 500 eggs in that lifetime. The Roses are horrified to imagine what their new neighbors will think.
I'm mortified. I don't want anyone to know. And I remember my husband specifically saying to me the next day, do not tell a soul.
People feel a stigma attached to bedbugs where they're associated with the poor and with dirty homes, when that's not the case at all. Bedbugs can infest anybody's house, no matter how much money you make or no matter how clean your home is.
Frank and Lauren hope their extreme cleaning will have vanquished the bugs once and for all.
But again, a week later, I was getting bit.
The battle moves to the next level with a professional exterminator.
He said that from what he saw, that it had been quite a few months that they had been living there, and it was a pretty decent-sized infestation.
And once established, bedbugs can take over every corner of a room.
As infestations grow, although they are primarily found associated with beds, they can be found in other areas, such as nightstands and alarm clocks, or radios, or even stuffed animals. In cities, people are living on top of each other, and what that presents is an opportunity for pests to go from one person's apartment, say, to another person's apartment, and quickly spread throughout in a building.
The initial feeling was, we have someone here, they're gonna take care of our problem, and this is gonna be over soon. We started to feel a little bit better at this point.
Our bedrooms and the whole third floor is now quarantined off. Doors are closed, the whole third floor is off limits.
The family moves downstairs while the infested upper level is sealed off. The next morning, Lauren is straightening up the makeshift beds in the living room when she finds a bedbug.
It's dead. So we said, okay, it's all right. We found a dead one.
And dead bugs don't bite. Lauren sounds the all clear.
A common reaction that people have when they find bedbugs in the home is that they're gonna go sleep in another room. But what's gonna happen is that after a time, these bugs are gonna follow you around the house wherever they have to go to find you. That can actually make the infestation much more difficult to treat.
My husband and I are sitting there one day, and he stops talking. And he gets up, and he goes and looks at the floor. And he said, look. And there was one crawling across the kitchen floor. Blood splattered out of this bug. That was my child's blood. It was so offensive to me.
It's the worst possible news. Despite professional pest control treatment, the bugs have reappeared, and somehow they've spread downstairs.
Immediately, our eyes went right to the sock monkey. It was one of his favorite things to play with, so it was always upstairs and downstairs, upstairs and downstairs.
All the money spent on pest control measures upstairs has been for nothing. The bedbugs have simply hitched a ride downstairs on their son's favorite toy.
Bedbugs can be attracted to anything that you handle regularly because it's gonna have your odor on it. Even a child's stuffed animal that it plays with all the time, it could be attracted to that item because it smells like the child.
They're powerless to defend themselves from a tiny bloodsucker that will go a long way for a meal.
Bedbugs can travel 50 to 100 feet or more in search of food if they are hungry enough.
Lauren and Frank are now spending thousands of dollars on more extermination efforts.
We called for our follow-up treatment and took a contract out to treat the whole house. And this time, they sprayed everywhere. Every single room in the entire house.
Surely, it's game over, even for the battle-hardened bedbugs.
A week after the second treatment, the bites began again. It was horrible. We thought we were on our way to getting rid of this problem, and here they are again.
When we apply pesticides, it may eliminate 99% of a pest, but we don't want to underestimate a pest's ability to survive, because their sole goal in life is to eat and then to reproduce to expand the colony.
The night I woke up with 100 bites, on my neck and another 300 on my forearms. That was the turning point. I was done. I was finished. I didn't know what else to do. It seemed like we were doomed.
All the pest control measures so far have failed. The Roses have spent nearly all their life savings and have no idea what to do.
This was going to either be a way of life for us, or we were going to have to pack up and move.
In Phoenix, the Barnes family home is attracting some very undesirable guests. Bark scorpions, the most venomous species in North America, with a sting that can kill a child. And not even the Exterminator's potent chemicals can kill them off.
There was very little that pest control could do in order to control the scorpion problem.
Pest controllers' knee-jerk reaction is to use pesticides. Scorpions actually have the ability to sense those pesticides and potentially avoid them. Another technique is to kill their food source. This is a ridiculous approach in that to kill every insect is pretty much impossible.
Wade and Tawnia speak to their neighbors to find out if they're the only victims.
The neighbors to the left and the right of us told us that they had seen some significance of scorpions, and so we figured we were all sitting on some type of scorpion habitat.
But Wade Barnes isn't about to give up. Fearing for the safety of his children, he sets out to turn their family home into a sealed, scorpion-free fortress.
You can't seal everything, but you can try to take the measures that you can to at least cut off their entry into the house as best as you possibly can.
When you lock your door at night, you think that you're making your home safe from an intruder. But different pests can see these very small gaps that you wouldn't think anything about and gain access to your house. So while you may be keeping people out, pests can still find a way in.
Wade and Tawnia even take advantage of their enemies' unique features to help track them down in the darkness.
One way people commonly detect scorpions is by taking an ultraviolet light at night. They have a unique chemical composition, and if one is there, it will glow quite vividly.
They get rid of countless scorpions, but their numbers are increasing.
Female bark scorpions can produce 25 to 35 young at one time. They will actually sit or hide on the female's back, and that's where they will stay until they grow for several weeks. And after that, they will move on and live an independent life away from their mother.
The scorpions were here a long time before these homes were built. And the trend for making over desert to green spaces is benefiting the original inhabitants. Scorpions may be synonymous with the dry Arizona desert, but even they need water.
All organisms need water to survive. A lush watered home or a lush watered yard is a scorpion's paradise.
And the inside of a house is the perfect place to escape the heat too.
We think that they actually like that hot environment. Scorpions actually like cool, damp environments. Scorpions are attracted to shade, and a house presents that shade where scorpions can go to get away from that summer heat.
It's not surprising that communities like this are seeing more of the deadly critters.
I've seen scorpions in the family room, the living room, the kitchen, around the perimeter of the house, on the patio.
They just automatically appear out of nowhere.
The venomous invaders just keep on coming.
One way other insects and organisms communicate is by pheromones, which are chemical cues. One theory is that bark scorpions may be releasing some sort of chemical cue to attract other scorpions to the same area.
Tawnia and Wade realize they're battling an unstoppable infestation, one that could kill their children.
We were dealing with the most poisonous scorpion in this region.
The fact that Nepal is a baby, one of the things that we constantly have to do is make sure we're always watching him, watching where he's sticking his hand, making sure he's not sticking it under the couch, and what would happen if Talena got stung.
There's nothing they can do. Day or night, nowhere is safe.
Talena and I were just kind of hanging out in our bed, in a master bedroom, and we were watching a movie.
I was in another part of the house. I was in the loft, and I was kind of just relaxing. And the night was winding down. Eventually just kind of dozed off and went to sleep.
In New Jersey, an infestation of a sinister pest is pushing the Rose family to the breaking point.
It seemed like we were doomed. Like this was going to either be a way of life for us, or we were going to have to pack up and move.
They expected professional extermination treatments to solve the problem, but the bedbugs are back.
Blood splattered out of this bug.
With the entire house now plagued by these resilient vampire insects, the Roses discover an extreme but expensive final option is available: total obliteration.
Bedbugs are very susceptible to temperatures over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Once they're exposed to those temperatures, they die very quickly. And so people are using heat to control bedbug infestations. That will kill all stages of bedbugs, both the ones that are walking around and the eggs.
We did what we had to do. We pulled together every last penny we had and had this company come in and heat our home to 150 degrees.
It's their last-ditch effort. Heat is piped in from a gas burner. The entire house is baked. Three months later, Lauren wants to feel positive.
I know that they're gone. I can move ahead now. Everything is a risk factor to me now. Everything. Restaurants, movie theaters, libraries, clothing stores.
The infestation has ruined their personal finances.
If everything's tallied up, everything from all of our bedroom furniture being thrown away to the heat guy, we're probably in the neighborhood of $15,000, $18,000 spent on our bedbug problem.
The scars they've left remain.
I miss the feeling of walking around freely and being unaware and not being afraid to drop your towel on the floor. You know, I miss that ignorance. Psychologically, everything has changed.
As the family adjusts to the aftermath, the bedbug invasion shows no sign of slowing up.
Bedbugs are starting to spread throughout the world. A lot of experts are starting to consider bedbugs to be a pandemic. The bottom line is that bedbugs are unfortunately back and here to stay.
With a house infested with bark scorpions, danger is always around the corner.
I knew it was a scorpion sting.
In Phoenix, Arizona, Tonia Barnes has been stung by a scorpion in her own bed.
She had her fists clutched over her ankle.
I would describe it as an extremely sharp piece of glass piercing into your skin.
We didn't know how potent the venom was that was injected into her.
Husband Wade calls the hospital.
Sometimes a scorpion can sting and it won't release any venom, while other times it will release a very large amount of venom, and that can be fatal.
And the bark scorpion's venom is the most potent of all.
Bark scorpion's venom is a neurotoxin, and what that means is it affects the way nerves fire in the human body. The muscles that are associated with breathing start to convulse and twitch, and that can actually affect the way oxygen is taken into the lungs.
Tonia is lucky. Her only reaction is pain and numbness.
The symptoms ended up lasting for me for almost a week's period. It was numb and tingling up my whole leg area.
The thoughts went in my head that, it stung my wife, it could have been my daughter.
Pushed to their limit, the Barnes can take no more. They want out.
We knew we had to get out of here because we can't deal with this. I had it. I really had.
But in a cruel twist of fate, escape is not so simple.
At the time, the economy had changed and we weren't able to put the house up for sale.
The Barnes family can't beat the infestation and can't afford to move either.
This is their home. Our house, our community was built on their home. We're the ones who have invaded them, so they're not going anywhere.
They are condemned to share their home with the Scorpions.
I think if anything, we'll leave before they do.
Whether they're marauding invaders attacking in droves or new vermin whose territory we are occupying, today's pests live, survive, and thrive on our modern-day lifestyles. How safe is your home?
No matter how tight we lock the doors, no matter how well we close our windows, there'll always be a way for something to manage to find its way into the house if it really wants to. There really absolutely is no way to have a truly 100% pest-free home.
Do you have what it takes to survive an infestation? Find out at animalplanet.com/infested.
We noticed like a liquid that was dripping down the window.
What the hell is that?
It's some of the worst stuff I've ever seen. It would hurt to breathe. It started to sting.
You get it in your clothes, you get it in your skin, it's in your hair.
And I thought, oh no, the damn things are in the fridge.
There's something wrong. This is getting out of control.
3 different families fighting 3 different infestations. Home is a sanctuary, but invaders don't respect boundaries. Our 4 walls provide all they need to survive, to thrive, and to multiply. And when they move in, home will never feel the same again. Newly single Wanda Butt and her 18-year-old son Chad are starting over.
The relationship I was in at the time had just dissolved, and it was a nasty breakup. We were going to have a whole new apartment in a whole new neighborhood. I had a new job that I was just starting.
I was excited about the new place. I was looking forward to setting up my room and having friends over and everything.
The apartment is small, but Wanda and Chad are working hard to save for something better.
Any shifts that came up for me, I was grasping because we desperately needed the income. And Chad was working whenever he could. He was working part-time nights and doing his studies during the day in school.
Wanda still finds time to give their home a thorough cleaning. And something catches her eye.
And we were finding what looked like some kind of a little plant pod. And I had never seen anything like that. And at the time, we were wondering what kind of a plant that could have come from.
Soon after moving in, Wanda and Chad head out of town to visit family. They return home a week later.
When we got back, we were both just spent, and I knew I had to get up in the morning to work. So we didn't even take the time to cook anything. We had just went out and bought takeout.
It was really good to be home and just settle back in.
I just laid the bags and stuff on the counter. I thought, well, when we leave for work in the morning, we'll just take those and throw them in the garbage. It's not a big deal. I came out early in the morning to get a drink, and I could hear the bag move on the counter. What the hell is that? It was the most unbelievable thing I had ever seen.
"600 miles away in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Jen Martinez is rushed to the hospital, where she's diagnosed with a potentially fatal lung infection.
I went to the doctor and I needed to have some x-rays to make sure there wasn't, large amounts of fluid in my lungs that could be potentially, really dangerous.
Jen has been struck down by a rare disease, mostly found in people who go into caves. A few months earlier, Jen and partner Mark Greka face a much more familiar challenge: finding a home. They want greenery. They want space. They want to be close to the schools their 3 children attend. A top-floor apartment in leafy Hales Corners seems perfect.
It was really nice and quiet.
We didn't have to worry about anybody upstairs causing any extra noise or walking around.
We took the lease out for a year, and then we're going to re-sign for another year. I love that house.
A month after moving in, Jen and Mark noticed something strange about their new home.
It was kind of like a brushing almost. It was like someone was sweeping. It sounded like someone was sweeping upstairs. I didn't really think there was anything to worry about. If a house has been there for a while, there's noises in the night, the house settling, things like that. So, at that point, I wasn't too worried about it.
A few nights later, they hear the mysterious noise again.
Maybe someone was throwing something. The kids were throwing up, acorns or something in the roof. I really didn't know what it was.
The next night, it gets worse.
We were sitting on our couch watching a movie. All of a sudden, it'd be right above us, and we would just jump because it was so loud.
This time, it goes on through the night.
It's kind of frightening to sit in your house and having to listen to that, and you're not really sure what it is. My kids heard something like someone was in the attic, and they thought that there was ghosts, so they came running out into the bedroom.
The family is now losing sleep. Mark worries that somehow somebody may be getting into the attic or even living there. He checks with the neighbors. No one has any answers. Jen alerts the building management.
I left a message and I said, there's something up in the attic and someone needs to come over here because I don't know who it is or what it is, but they're very loud and it sounds like they're going to come through our ceiling.
The property manager doesn't return her call. That night, when Mark's at work, Jen's too afraid to stay inside the house.
I was really thinking that someone was trying to break in, and they couldn't do it, so they were going to come back later on. That's when I started to kind of get panicky.
And then I get a phone call from Jen, really hysterical. I'm getting out of the apartment. Somebody is definitely up in our attic area.
I told him you need to go up and find out what it is.
With no response from the building management, Mark gets a friend to help him investigate.
I actually thought that it could be somebody up there. And as I'm taking the hatch up off to peek my head into the attic area, I'm a little hesitant because I have no idea, and I'm a little jittery because I'm hearing noises. And I'm looking right around me to see if there's anybody around me. And as I'm scanning with the flashlight, I see a set of eyes. And I kind of like, whoa, what is it?
And all of a sudden, he goes, they're raccoons, and they're big.
The attic is being torn apart by more raccoons than Mark can count.
An attic is a perfect environment for a raccoon. It provides a nice, open, dark space that's sheltered from the elements, gives them plenty of room to have babies. In urban and suburban areas where natural habitat isn't as available, you're going to find much larger groups of raccoons living together.
It's a relief to identify the mysterious disturbances. Jen knows raccoons can be dangerous, but the solution seems straightforward.
I thought, oh, okay, well, those are raccoons, and we can just call, animal control, and they'll come pick them up, and, it'll be done. I really don't have to worry about anything.
She leaves another message with building management, but hears nothing back. That night, the raccoons are as noisy as ever. Jen and Mark try to figure out how the pests are getting inside their attic.
There was quite a large tree that was next to our unit. I would say it was at least, maybe like 5 foot jump from the branch that was hanging closest to the house. We kind of figured out that they were getting up there from that tree.
Raccoons are amazingly dexterous, unlike a dog or a cat, which really aren't able to use their feet. A raccoon is amazingly well designed to use its hands. They can open things, they can tear things open with their claws, and they literally can grab and pull much in the same way that we would. With the exception, possibly, of Fort Knox, there really isn't any facility in the United States that's going to be safe from a raccoon.
Mark bypasses the management and takes his plea to building maintenance.
I told him, hey, look, here's how they're coming in. If you guys can just fix this, they can't get in anymore.
They send a contractor to trap the raccoons. But as fast as they're trapped, more take their place in the attic. The noise escalates until it's almost unbearable. But Jen and Mark are about to find out that the noise is the least of their worries. In Ottawa, Canada, Wanda Butt awakes to strange sounds coming from a bag of empty takeout containers.
What the hell is that? Oh my God, they're cockroaches. I had never ever had a problem in my home with bugs. I actually associated cockroaches with filth. If somebody's house was crawling with cockroaches, it's because they were disgustingly dirty.
Wanda goes into a cleaning frenzy, hoping that a spotless apartment will drive the cockroaches away. But roaches aren't looking for dirt.
I decided I wanted to go get a snack. I had a already open bag of nachos in the cupboard. I had noticed bugs crawling up from under the tortilla shells. I had completely lost my appetite.
We couldn't keep anything in our cupboard. Everything that was not in a completely sealed container had cockroaches in it.
If you leave a bag of food or even food scraps on your counter, one cockroach at least will find that within an hour, because once it gets dark, they're coming to hunt. Pheromone will call other cockroaches to consume that food.
There was a bag of pasta, and cockroaches were literally crawling out of the macaroni. It was the most stomach-churning thing.
The only safe place left to keep food is in the fridge.
We literally could not leave a crumb anywhere. We couldn't even put the dog food on the floor.
While cleaning, Wanda finds more of the same strange seeds she saw when she moved in. A quick search online is horribly revealing.
These little flower pods, they were actually the sacks that the baby cockroaches come in.
If you're finding lots of egg sacs in your house, you have an infestation. You could easily have tens of thousands of cockroaches in a home without difficulty.
Wanda calls the building managers, demanding help.
I started making calls to anybody that would listen. It was almost a belittling situation to go through, because when you're talking to people, they're telling you, okay, well, maybe you should contact this department, and I'm going to refer you to this one.
Nobody responds to Wanda's complaints. So she and Chad decide to trap the roaches themselves.
We had sticky pads all over the apartment and had them end to tail, end to tail, end to tail, so that we would catch them coming up and down the walls. And in a period of 48 hours, we trapped in excess of 100 cockroaches on a sticky pad.
The sticky pad is an excellent survey method, but as far as a pest control method, it's worthless. One mated female can live for 150 days on average. She will produce 240 eggs in her lifetime. Half of those will be females, which will begin breeding. And at the end of the year, if there's food, 58,000 cockroaches can be produced.
In Florida, in 2009, neighbors in one apartment complex learned how quickly a cockroach invasion can get out of hand. They noticed so many roaches spilling out from this home, they called the landlord. Pest controllers found a massive infestation of over 100,000 roaches.
Cockroaches have been around for 200 million years and they're incredibly successful species, but the ones that cause the most trouble are the ones that are associated with us. Basically, cockroaches live with us, eat what we eat, like our temperatures, homes, and lifestyle, and they've spread with us all over the world.
When she gets no response from the building management, Wanda tries to shame them into action. She calls her local radio station, which sends a reporter.
You're listening to Auto Morning.
Okay, let's start with my front door. This was a main entry point, and you can see the dead cockroaches. At this point, we were willing to do anything to get these bugs under control. We literally had nowhere else to go.
Her strategy works. An exterminator is sent to the apartment.
So at that point, we figured we have like a professional exterminator, so the situation was going to be solved.
For the first time since moving in, Wanda and Chad relax. As the apartment starts to feel like home, and they get back into a normal routine. Wanda's up early the next morning for her new job.
I think it was around 4:30-ish in the morning, and I just went into the kitchen. The floor came to life with bugs. They literally went everywhere. They were under the door. They went behind the cupboards. They ran under the fridge. It was the most insane thing I had ever seen. At that point, I really thought we are really screwed.
The cockroach likes to go into little cracks and crevices where there might be some breadcrumbs that have been left behind and not cleaned up properly. And so this gives it a huge advantage on finding food that we might not even know is in our homes. Even though we think we've cleaned up, we've left all this food available for it.
The next day, Wanda bumps into a neighbor who delivers some shocking news.
My dear, she said, we're getting a petition going to get rid of the cockroaches in this building.
The entire building is infested. The only way to eliminate the roaches is to spray every single apartment with pesticides. Unfortunately, not everybody wants that to happen.
There was one excessively infested apartment, and his religious beliefs did not allow him to kill anything. So his apartment was basically a Club Med for cockroaches. You could see them coming out from under his door.
Apartments are probably the greatest bonanza for cockroach populations that we've ever produced. Even if you try to control them, in most of the apartments in that building, one apartment that's not participating becomes the mothership breeding site from which new infestations will continually reappear.
And the more there are, the more relentless their hunt for food becomes. Suddenly, the roaches are everywhere, even in the places Wanda thought were roach-proof.
And I thought, oh no, the damn things are in the fridge.
Streaky Bay, a small farming community in South Australia. This is the grain belt, the only part of the continent where enough rain usually falls to grow wheat and barley. Farmers' livelihoods are at the mercy of the elements.
There are a lot of risks. Weather is the key ingredient. No rainfall, no crop, no lifestyle, no happy wife.
But once every generation, the weather conspires to create a living nightmare for this tight-knit community. Nobody knows when it will happen, only that it will at some point. The farmers are always on the lookout for telltale signs.
When you're out checking your livestock, you see hawks circling around. They're all circling overhead.
If there's evidence on the ground, it will confirm Phil's fears.
Whilst driving about, you see extra holes in the ground that you don't normally see.
It's not the holes that worry the farmers. It's what's in them.
At that stage, the numbers were there, but it wasn't a real concern.
Phil checks with other farmers to find out what they're seeing on their land.
There were a lot more active holes than usual. You don't have to have very many active holes, maybe 4 or 5, and you already know you've got a problem. It's coming down the track.
The farmers have come to learn. Hawks and holes mean trouble is on the way. Phil starts to make nightly checks of his fields. The signs point to one horrific reality. A mouse plague is brewing. The fields run right up to Streaky Bay homes. Mother of 3, Kelly Lake, is finding mice in her house.
It started off with the odd 1 or 2, maybe 3. It is disgusting to see like mice running over my kids' toys, on their beds. I was worried about my kids with all the mice running around in the house.
the risk of disease from mice is real.
You get salmonella just by contact with mouse urine or mouse feces. If they get into your kitchen, you might put your food on the kitchen counter, and if a mouse has been across that area, you could get it that way.
Just got more and more each day.
Mice are showing up everywhere.
Particularly around the sheds, I was noticing mice numbers increasing. There was more activity. To see them during the middle of the day was meaning that they were hungry.
For them to move around during the day, when they're more vulnerable to, say, predators, then there's a lot of mice around, and they're obviously not able to compete with the other mice moving around at night. If I was seeing mice moving around during the day, I would start to be very concerned.
All around Streaky Bay, farmers now see ominous signs of a gathering storm.
Mice numbers were gradually building and building.
Mice breed very quickly. Females can be reproductively active at about 6 weeks of age. Once they've given birth, they will actually mate immediately again, so that while they're nursing one litter of young, they're actually pregnant with the second. So there's a continual cycle of reproductive output that the females are capable of.
She's a little factory on legs, just pumping them out, pumping them out.
A mouse plague has begun. Streaky Bay faces a farming apocalypse. Ottawa, Canada. Wanda Butt battles an infestation of roaches. She cleans meticulously, but still the insects overrun every corner of her home. Now, they are even in her fridge.
You could actually see where these cockroaches had crawled in and out of our butter dish.
Cockroaches hate the cold and typically avoid refrigerators. But when the population is large, competition for food is fierce.
If you're seeing cockroaches in the fridge, you have 10,000 plus cockroaches in your home.
That was the point when I realized they're actually everywhere now. There's not a thing we can do to keep our food safe.
The cockroach has an incredible potential to spread disease because they're walking across excrement around the backs of your toilets. Any urine at all on the floor, they're walking through that. They'll walk through sewers. They'll go outside to find dead animals. And any disease on that, E. coli, anything, they will take and spread on your table, your counters, your cutlery, your cups, your plates.
One morning I had woken up and I had went out to go brush my teeth. I opened the cabinet and first thing I seen was actually 2 cockroaches running across my toothbrush. It was really, really disgusting.
A wet toothbrush is a perfect place for cockroaches to find food. The cockroach is essentially eating the residue from your teeth and drinking the water, and of course, leaving feces behind.
Chad can't take it anymore. He goes to visit his father for Christmas.
It almost sounds selfish, but I felt good about leaving.
It was unbelievable knowing that your child wants to get the hell out of the house and home that you've provided for him. That was really frustrating. That was a heartbreaking thing.
But with the entire apartment building still crawling with roaches, there is no refuge.
Cockroaches do not generally want to crawl on people at night, but of course they're driven by the search for food and moisture. So if you're sleeping at night, you're breathing, you may be drooling a little bit out of the side of your mouth, and cockroaches will want to drink that water.
Wanda is only left with one option.
It got to the point of where I figured if they're not going to do anything, I'm going to start holding back rent payments.
Wanda's protest draws attention from the building managers. The wrong kind. They respond by evicting her and Chad.
I don't think anybody should have to pay to live in a situation like that. I'm probably one of the few people that can actually say when I got evicted, I was relieved we were out of there.
They move over 1,000 miles away to start afresh with family in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Flat out, full stop, no questions asked. The roaches actually won out over everything done to get rid of them in that building. And I would lay $1 to donuts if you went back and checked today, it's still infested with them.
In the very worst cases, we can have millions of cockroaches in an apartment block. These become just turned over to cockroaches, and we have those in every city in North America.
Jen Martinez and Mark Greca have discovered raccoons in the attic above their apartment. Building maintenance traps the noisy pests. Soon the traps are empty. But it's not because the raccoons have moved out.
The raccoons figured out that they can get in the traps. They were eating the cat food and leaving the empty jars upside down, and they were leaving the traps empty. They were just feeding the raccoons, basically.
Jen knows the raccoons are still there. She and her family are kept awake every night.
I laid there until it was 7 o'clock in the morning, and they wouldn't stop all night long. It sounded like someone was taking like small bowling balls. It was that loud, and throwing them against our ceiling.
At nighttime, what you'll find with baby raccoons and with adult raccoons is they're very interactive with each other. They'll fight with each other, they'll play with each other, and you're going to hear those noises. They're going to range from chirping noises all the way on up to screaming noises, and they can really be quite frightening, almost like a haunted house.
A cozy den site, like an empty attic, is prime raccoon real estate.
Once a den has been established, particularly if it's established by a female raccoon, you're going to be very likely to attract other raccoons to that area.
In the suburbs, there is no shortage of raccoons making a line for a favorable site.
We're seeing approximately a 10-fold increase in the raccoon population in urban and suburban areas.
Now, people and raccoons are locked on a collision course.
As we take down their natural habitat, we're providing environments like attics, like garages, which can house many more raccoons than you would normally see in a park or woodland setting.
Jen pleads with building management to help.
They could have trimmed or cut down the tree. They could have repaired the flashings.
It's like we're paying rent for the raccoons to live upstairs. I couldn't take it anymore.
Jen and Mark consider moving out.
We didn't have the money to move all over again. You know, first month's rent security deposit is a lot to come up with.
I was so upset to the point where this is getting out of control.
And it gets worse. The raccoons are making this turf their own.
I started looking around the house and I would see like yellow stains, like water damage.
Mark worries the raccoons may have damaged the roof. But this fear is soon replaced by a much uglier realization.
It got to the point where the kids were like, it smells bad in here, and we were burning candles constantly.
The smell was really, it was very pungent.
The whole family develops a nagging cough.
It would hurt to breathe. It started to sting, actually, when you would try to take in a breath. And I thought, there's something wrong. I rarely get sick.
Jen's suspicion is right. Something is severely wrong, as she discovers when she's rushed to the hospital.
The doctor listened to my lungs, and she said, well, there's something, I can hear something in your lungs.
The doctor diagnoses histoplasmosis. It's a rare and potentially fatal lung infection, triggered by fungal spores that grow on feces typically in bat-infested caves.
It's really not a disease of someone who lives in a household. I mean, they're living in a house that has windows in it, and yet still they're picking up a disease that classically you're only ever going to pick up underground.
I felt very defeated. I felt like this is taking such a drastic control of my life.
One raccoon that just goes to your bathroom once in your attic, you're not going to have histoplasmosis. It's an indicator of devastation, basically. I mean, you've really it's got to be horrific.
Jen is in the hospital for a week. When she leaves, nothing will prepare her for what the raccoons do next. In South Australia, a plague of mice overwhelms the farm town of Streaky Bay. Mouse numbers on this scale can wipe out a harvest and a family's life savings.
It's at the back of your mind as to what effect is it going to have on us when harvest time comes around.
The Streaky Bay farmers face a make-or-break decision. This is the time to sow, but they're afraid that the seed will simply feed the mouse plague. If they don't sow, they won't get a second chance. No harvest means losing most of their income for the year, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
You've got to go for it. If you don't get it in, out the ground and growing, you've missed the boat for the whole season.
Despite their fears, Phil and the other farmers gamble and sow their crop. But the seed they're planting is disappearing.
As fast as you're putting the grain in the ground, they were going back and digging it up.
They were running along, pulling the grain out, eating the seed off the bottom, going on to the next one, doing the same thing.
Mice eat a lot. Their metabolic rate is about 7 times faster than a person, and they will eat about 20% of their body weight a day. So can you imagine eating almost a quarter of your body weight every day?
The farmers hope that enough of the wheat will survive to make a small harvest. The plague is spreading beyond the farmers' fields and into the surrounding homes.
The mice were getting into everything they could, in your wardrobes, your drawers.
The desperate homeowners can't hold back the tide of mice with traps.
You'd set them all before you went to bed. If you heard any go off while you were awake, you'd get up and change them again. One night we had 30 in our house, trap after trap.
The farmers use water troughs to trap the mice. The sea is the only place around Streaky Bay not infested with the rodents. This is a plague of biblical proportions.
The development of a plague doesn't just suddenly happen. You need right rain at the right time, good food, and a number of different factors all working together to continue to build the size of that mouse population to what we eventually see as a plague. And the problem with a plague is that nobody notices it's coming until it's too late.
The mice usually avoid daylight to hide from predators like hawks and snakes. Only in a plague will they appear during the day in huge numbers.
You pick up a sheet of iron and the ground moves under your feet.
At night, when the mice prefer to emerge, the true extent of the plague is staggering.
To be in the middle of a mouse plague is a surreal experience. They were everywhere. The ground's moving, they're going in all directions.
You could see down the front of our house, the ground was just moving. It was just mice.
The locals can't leave their homes. If they drive, they risk skidding off the road. Farmers don't want to go into their barns.
The ground's moving, the walls are moving. Things are running on rafters, they're going in all directions. I've had a few go up my trouser leg. It's not a good feeling.
There is no refuge from the plague anywhere.
The smell of it all, that's the part that really got to you.
Oh, the stench is putrid and you can't get rid of it.
It's one that makes you want to hold your breath. You get it in your clothes, you get it in your skin, it's in your hair. Whatever you touch, they've defecated on. It's all sticky, so your hands are sticky. You put your hands on the steering wheel, that gets sticky. You want to wash your hands all the time. It's rank.
The mice are also highly destructive.
They chewed everything in sight. Plastics, wood, carpets, floor coverings, upholstery, electrical wiring.
One of the reasons that mice are so destructive is that they constantly need to keep gnawing things because those teeth never stop growing. So if they're not constantly chewing on things to wear down those teeth, they'll just grow too long and then they won't be able to feed properly.
The horrific infestation is now threatening the farmer's future. Bales of hay to feed cattle over the winter are alive with vermin.
Every time you pick up a bale of hay and you see them jumping, pandemonium.
They were everywhere. They were underneath them and on top of them and on the side of them. The haystacks were alive with mice, all over them, everywhere.
Mouse urine and feces make the hay inedible. The farmers have no option but to burn their cattle's winter feed.
There's lots of times where I just want to scream at your top of your lungs, and I've had enough of this. What have I ever done to deserve this?
Farmers still cling to the hope that some wheat will grow. But the worst of the mouse plague is yet to come. In Milwaukee, Jen Martinez spends a week in the hospital with a rare lung infection caused by fungal spores growing on raccoon feces.
It would hurt to breathe. It started to sting, actually, when you would try to take in a breath.
All attempts to remove the raccoons from her attic have failed.
I felt very defeated. This is taking such a drastic control of my life.
When doctors allow Jen to go home, she discovers a shocking sight.
We noticed like a liquid that was kind of dripping down the window. And when you would walk over to it, you could start to smell it. Disgusting doesn't describe it.
The mess and the odor are becoming overwhelming.
It just hit you like a ton of bricks.
In an environment like an attic, where you're going to have raccoons that are urinating and defecating over a long period of time, you're going to get a significant accumulation of waste in that area.
With raccoon feces dripping onto her children's clothes, Jen and partner Mark are at the breaking point. The apartment is dangerous to their health, but they can't afford to move. They'll lose their deposit if they abandon their lease. They're stuck.
We're coming home, we're kind of like dreading, hey, the raccoon's gonna be there tonight, or what's the deal? And as we walk through our front door, I'm looking up at the ceiling.
It's collapsed under the weight of the wet filth piling up in their attic.
I was in shock. There was urine-soaked feces and insulation all over our couch. I just thought I couldn't deal with it anymore.
I got the kids out, took them over to grandparents. I said, first thing I'm going down tomorrow morning, I'm going straight to the health department.
The health inspector arrives the next morning.
So as he's going in the attic, he goes, oh my God, this is some of the worst stuff I've ever seen. And the next thing I know, he fell through our ceiling.
Unable to take any more, Jen and Mark move out.
I had called the manager and and I explained the situation. I said, where are you gonna put us up? You're gonna put us in a hotel until this is cleaned up and fixed. Am I right? And they said, no, we don't do that. So we packed up some bags, and I told my mom, we have to come and stay with you because we have to find a place to live.
They forfeit their deposit.
It's very heartbreaking packing up what little belongings you can fit into a duffel bag with 3 kids.
Once, wild animals and people were only likely to mix in rural areas. Mark and Jen have discovered nature's rules are changing.
Raccoons are not an invasive species. Raccoons were here before us. So as we encroach on their territory, they adapt to live in ours.
In Streaky Bay, South Australia, farmers discover that their recently sown wheat crop has failed to grow.
Nothing grew. Nothing come out the ground.
It has been eaten by a plague of mice. Farmers like Phil Wheaton have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Worse, the only remedy is to spend extra money trying to kill the mice with poisoned bait. It's expensive, and many of the Streaky Bay farms are so large, it's impossible to put down enough poison.
I lost a lot of crop. It just was a physical impossibility to try and bait 6,000 acres.
Controlling a mouse plague is possible, but only if you have cooperation of a very broad area. If farmers in adjacent areas haven't baited, then you have a nice field with no mice in it, and all the other fields around have got lots of mice in them, and they're all going to move straight back into the area that has just been emptied of mice.
The farmers simply can't poison the mice fast enough to hold down the numbers. And their natural allies, hawks and snakes and foxes, are also vastly outnumbered.
It's something that builds and builds and builds and builds, and it just doesn't get any better. It's just a slow thing that eats and eats at you. You're wishing for it to end. You can't see a way out.
The farmers are powerless to stop the tide of mice by themselves. Australia is not the only country to suffer mouse plagues like this. They have erupted in the US. One outbreak in 1927 in California saw 80,000 mice per acre ravaging the crops.
Mouse plague can cost you millions and millions of dollars. Not only in lost crop and production, but mice will chew through agriculture equipment, causing all sorts of damage to infrastructure.
The plague starts to collapse after the land is devastated and the mice have consumed everything edible. All that's left is each other.
When you were on the turn, when they started eating themselves?
Usually populations get so dense that they basically run out of food. When the mice start to run out of food, they will turn on each other and start fighting, and then they'll start eating each other. So you'd start getting a lot of cannibalism within the population.
You thought, you beauty, it's happening. You know that it's in sight, the end is near.
Starvation and cold, wet weather finish off the plague. But this relief is too late for the war-torn farmers.
I've lost a year of production. I've lost a year of income. I've lost $130,000 to $150,000 stone cold.
The mouse plague has devastated Streaky Bay. At least now it's over. But farmers can't rest easy because nobody knows when a plague will rise again.
It's one of the most frustrating times that I've ever come across. I wasn't in control of our destiny.
I was one of the farmers that were completely wrong. I didn't think that it would get to where it got to because I thought nature might level it out. But by crikey, I was dead wrong.
Pests may be unwelcome visitors, but there's never been a time when our homes have been free from invaders. That's not likely to change anytime soon.
Our homes are the perfect environment for pests for the same reason that they're the perfect environment for us. They're warm, they're secure, they're safe, and that's where we store our food.